Good afternoon to all the participants. My name is Architect Guneet Singh Khurana. Fire and Security Association of India, in support with Archistudent, welcomes you all for an online webinar on fire towers, intent, aspect, and approach by Mr. Sandeep Goel as part of Extra Miles with FSAI, an initiative of FSAI Chandigarh chapter. Architect Surinder Baga, Joint Secretary of FSAI Chandigarh chapter, is the principal architect of Sarkar Foundation in Chandigarh. His works are published in many journals and newspapers of repute. Two of his churches applauded throughout the world. His works was exhibited at Archifest exhibition organized by Singapore Institute of Architects. He was awarded by Sir Mr. Viveshwara Award in 1995 by HUDCO for energy efficient housing design. He got Michael Vitreous Award from Architectural Association London. He has co-authored many books and has worked with many prominent architects. He worked as chairman of IAA Chandigarh Punjab chapter for 2 terms as chairman of IAA Publication Board and editor of Journal of Indian Institute of Architects from 2013 to 2015. He had been nominated as councillor in Chandigarh Municipal Corporation for the term 2012 and 16. He was chairman of Chandigarh Municipal Corporation's Committee for Buildings and Roads. Currently, he is the member of Advisory Committee of India's Home Ministry on Union Territories. Recently, he has been appointed as head of Chandigarh sub-chapter of FSAI and chairman of GEM Chandigarh chapter. Fire is one of the most important consideration for any building. So, to proceed further, I would request Architect Surinder Baga to give a formal address to the session.
We all know that fire safety is very important topic, and one of the survey, India Risk Survey of 2018, has concluded that fire outbreak is third biggest risk to the business industry. Non-compliance of safety norms, under-kept fire services are responsible for this problem. One of the study, is indicating that India got 3,000 fire stations in the country and is needing 8,600 more fire stations. And there's a deficit of nearly 65%. In addition to that, India needs about 6 lakhs of trained fire professionals, and we need about 2.25 lakhs of fire equipments and 10,000 fire vehicles and fire equipments more. So that shows that India is lagging behind in the fire safety sector to a great extent. And just to know the views of a very noted expert, very prominent person, my close friend Sandeep Goel ji, we have invited him for today's seminar. He will be sharing his knowledge and experience with all of us. And this has been made possible with the great patronage of Pankaj Dakar sir. He is chairman of the National Task Force of FSAI, and our most handsome national president, Mr. Suresh Mananji. And we welcome Dakar sir and Manan sir. And we also welcome our regional director of North, Mr. Rakesh Arora ji. He is always very supportive. And my close friend Gil Sahib, Davinder Gill, he is chairman of the Delhi chapter. They all, Dharkar sir, Manan sir, and Arora sir, Gill Sahib, they always encourage us to a great extent. And this is a big honor for all of us. And we are grateful to, and we welcome Guneet Singh, who has played a major role, and my close friend Dinesh Bhagat. They have publicized this event all over the country. I think we reached out to nearly 1 lakh people. Sandeep, this is to be noted. And apart from that, the back support was given by Renu ma'am, Harsha, Suresh, and Chanchal. They are always the backbone of all our events. We welcome them too. And in the last, I welcome all my CWC members of the Chandigarh chapter for their support and all the participants. And before I conclude, we have a special welcome for Orient Fire Curtains India for their sponsorship of this event. And thank you so much. Over to Guneet.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this formal address. So, to give us more insights about the topic, fire towers, we have with us engineer Sandeep Goel. Mr. Goel has over 25 years of building services consultancy experience and has worked as a hands-on design engineer and thereafter as project director with successful design systems for numerous projects. Mr. Sandeep has been closely involved in the design and coordination and innovation of MEP services, design of over 500 projects, which also includes mixed use, hotels, hospitals, commercial, offices, retails, residentials, and many more. Mr. Goel is committee member at National Building Codes of India 2005 and also 2016 Part 4 Fire and Life Safety, Part 9 Plumbing Services, and Part 11 Approach to Sustainability. A certified fire protection specialist, NFPA USA, and member Skyscraper Editorial Board 2015 to 2017, CTU BH Chicago, USA. Mr. Goel has attended numerous design coordination meetings across the world and has given his significant contribution in the engineering design solutions to architects, structural engineers, landscape architects, and to owners. He is presently chair at FSAI Innovation and Excellence. So, without any further delay, I would request Mr. Goel to kindly take up this session and enlighten us with his knowledge.
Thank you for this opportunity. It's been a great, I would say, union of minds again. I would like to do a presentation, of course, on this. And I would like to take an opportunity of keeping the session after the presentation more interactive. So we would like to really come back and discuss on various aspects of the designs which are being proposed, whether it is the commercial buildings or whether it is the residential buildings and otherwise. Most importantly, as part of the code committee, we are very much passionate of incorporating excellence in the code from our learnings in the various projects. So from that background, you please allow me to share my presentation, please.
Sir, I would just cut it from here. If we can have a small AV about the session we are going to start with the sponsors. Before the presentation, can we have the AV?
Yeah, 1 second.
Sure. Sir, you can share your screen now, sir. Yeah, it's visible, sir. Just make it full screen, sir. Sure. Thank you. So I think the topic which we have chose is to talk about the aspects of the relationship with respect to the fire tower over here. Now on fire tower, give me a moment, please. Okay, on the fire tower, I think there has been a lot of deliberations ever since it got introduced in the National Building Code in 2016 version, which got released on the 15th of March 2017. A lot of deliberation has happened with colleagues, with people, with friends, with architects to talk about the various kind of design requirements on a fire tower. And I think the whole approach has been to bring excellence with respect to life safety. A fire tower is completely looking at the aspects of life safety, and that's where I think a very focused understanding is required for a fire tower in the interest of the people, in the interest of the occupants who are there in the building. So it integrates a lot of architectural planning, it integrates a lot of electromechanical planning, and that's the whole approach of having a fire tower requirement. Now, if you really look at fire and life safety, you have got key design aspects. The National Building Code basically breaks up the aspects of the fire, in terms of fire prevention, life safety, and fire protection. A fire tower, in fact, is one of the element which deals with all of these things very comprehensively, planned to make sure the overall objective of the life safety per se is achieved. And the reason why we have to try, design the fire tower in a very holistic way is to make sure that the intent of the various aspects are very well compiled, they're very well aligned. And that's the whole idea that I would like to work with my friends, colleagues, architects, engineers, to explain, to understand, and to also carry the message of challenges which they face in the planning and design of a fire tower. Now, I really look at this one is one of my, my favorite slides, which takes me back to the school days when we always used to be, listening to the story of the 5 blind man and the elephant. So all I want to always say that, a lot of times we all work in our own silos, the architects to engineers to owners, contractors, everybody is looking at the same thing in their own perspective. And that's where I think a lot of disconnect comes between us, where we are not able to relate what we are wanting to do. And the opportunity which we take up at FSAI is to remove those doubts and understand that which is the elephant in the room, what we have to deal with, and what is it that we all are working towards making sure the fire safety of the people who are occupying, the life safety of the people who are occupying the place. Now, if you really look at a design approach, it goes into many parts. Smoke mitigation requirements. We hear a lot from everybody saying, a lot of people die in smoke rather than in fire. That's true, but the ironical fact is that we also need to resolve the problem. Just by an expression of saying that a lot of people die in smoke, not in fire, but what is it to be done that the people now do not die in smoke? What is it that we have to do? Pressurization, ventilation are two great aspects of doing it. And I, in my own parlance, call it smoke mitigation, because smoke mitigation comes out from combinations of various requirements which we plan for. Zoning of air conditioning system, very important. We need to make compartmentation in the plannings. Electrical safety and resilience. I'm very particular. We work as consultants. We are not into the silos of fire and life safety. If you do not have the electrical systems complementing your fire safety, we have a big problem. Gas separation systems to avoid damages due to water. You have got IT areas, you've got server areas, emergency lighting and exit lighting is one subject which I feel a lot of work is to be still done, and a lot of us take it for granted. But believe me or not, when you get stuck unfortunately in a space where you experience a situation of fire, an emergency lighting will guide you with the lux levels, and exit lighting will guide you through indicational arrows. These two are like somebody holding your hand and taking you through those difficult times into something which is known as an exit. A fire lift, kitchen safety, refuge area safety, fire control and command. You see, these are not exactly part of active fire protection system, but they have a very close interaction with engineering system, and that's where these all systems cannot work in silos. They have to get aligned with the engineering systems very focused in very articulated aspect. Now, when we talk about codes and standards, a lot of people, have got their own interpretation requirements. They have their own policies. They have their own means. They would like to hear and listen to something which your eyes and ears want to listen to. But is this what the code mentions? Despite the fact that the code would like to highlight as much. Now, I meet many friends whom they say, let's say a compartmentation of a space is 3,000 square meters. Okay. About 750 square meters, you need to do compartmentation. Fair enough. What's the size of your floor plate? My floor plate is Sandeep 3,500 square meters. Okay, fair enough. Do I need a compartmentation? Yes, if you are over 750 square meters, you need a compartmentation. But do I need a compartmentation in that aspects where if my floor plate is 3,500 square meters, can I not make something like 3,500? If my floor plate is 2,100, can I not do 2,100? The code is not ironically specified the size of the compartment beyond a certain areas. So it does not mean that if you have to compartmentalize an area into two parts, it cannot become 80-20 principles. The code, it was not imagined that the code would be perceived in a different direction and people would start doing compartmentation in two different formats. So this is what I want to show you. This is from one of the malls. Areas of refuges, so-called, occupied by air conditioners. This is another picture which is I had taken in Bangalore in one of the meetings. I was there. I looked out and I saw this is where the problems are. You are looking at another picture which comes from one of the government buildings, which you would be surprised to see that inside the staircase there is a glass which you can see, and the electrical panels are put inside the staircase mid-landing. Now that's again a problem. This is unfortunately from Bangalore airport, a sprinkler with a flexible. We are happy to use it, but the problem is if you are doing the work too fast and you are not doing the right supports, this sprinkler is good for nothing, because when the pressure comes up, the sprinkler is going to tail wind, and then you're not able to get the right flow, the right pressure, the right, the cooling effect which you would need to do on the fire. This is another picture which I had taken from the Twitter of Mrs. Neelam Krishnamurthy. Unfortunately, she had lost her kids in Ubhar tragedy. An exhaust fan in the stairwell, which is in the opposite direction. So, engineers are told to pressurize the staircase, and what they thought, provide a fan, because somebody said pressurizing a staircase means provide a fan. How do? They provided a fan which basically is in the opposite direction of the staircase. So what happened is that the exhaust fan was able to suck the air from the auditorium into the staircase. So rather than positively pressurizing the staircase, it was negatively pressurizing the staircase, thereby sucking the air from the smoke from the auditorium to the staircase and throwing the smoke outside via the staircase. Now, these ones are examples which are so heart-reckoning to see how misunderstandings have happened and how things have proceeded further. The fear of unknown, I've taken it from a mall in Calcutta just to make you sure this is a light and that's a sprinkler. And the guy is so much worried that he landed up putting a sprinkler behind an isolation valve behind the sprinkler. So when I went ahead and saw it over there like a visitor to the mall, and I said I want to talk to the mall manager, he said, sir, हमें डर लगता है, स्प्रिंकलर चल पड़ेगा, मॉल में बहुत लोग आते हैं, हमारी मॉल बहुत प्रेस्टीजियस है, तो हमने क्या कर रखा है, गवर्नमेंट की एनओसी के लिए स्प्रिंकलर लगा दिए हैं और पीछे वाल्व लगा के मैनेजमेंट ने बंद कर दिया है ताकि पानी ना निकले. Now, can you imagine these situations with whom would you have to deal with? You're talking about codes, standards, National Building Code, NFPA, whatnot. And this is what we see, which really is so scary to see. Another picture which I always look at, this is a fire door which has got a door stopper. What's the fun of having a fire door when there is a door stopper? Now, the new National Building Code, the 2016 version, we realized, you have to really handhold. So we said the clause which you read over there, fire door and exit shall not be allowed to be in hold open position and shall be kept closed and to close by door closure spring mechanism. This basically is able to highlight how critical it is to close the doors which are provided for the purpose of exits. Now, I have another example which says, where is the exit in this building? A lot of people would think that the staircase which is there is an exit. But ironically, in this building, there is a staircase, but there is no exit. This is the National Museum in Delhi, which had a fire in it. And after the fire, once, fortunately, we did not lose life, but I think we lost something which is equally valuable, was our assets. And once we went inside, we saw the spaces, we realized how bad it could be, and fortunately, museums are not places where, our Indian, visitors frequently go. Unlike the Western world, they have got lesser museums and more population. We have got more museums and lesser population. So to go into the museums, I don't remember my friends telling me that they have taken their kids to one of the museum. That we don't take the kids to the museum. We take them to other kind of, fun parks, but we don't take the kids to the museum. But now the element which came out of it was that there was no, typically, this is not an exit. So a lot of architects would think a staircase is an exit. But typically speaking, non-protected staircase is not an exit. So what you see in the diagram over here, if you go around many places, you would see staircases which are open in spaces. Now, those staircases which are open in spaces are not to be considered as an exit. They are pretty vulnerable. So a travel distance always is counted from the end of the path to the door where you're going to go, because your open staircases in that regards become the travel distance criteria to be met with. So this is very important to understand, that any staircase which is open is not an exit. And the National Building Code very clearly prescribes that an exit is only the one which is enclosed by a 2-hour fire rated walls and a door which is kept on always closed position. Now, when you do that, what exactly happens is you're able to allow the people to go down. But when you get into the National Building Code, I would like to highlight, because we've got a couple of colleagues here, young architects, and I should admit that some point of time, our terminology in the code was not very clear. So we were not very clear, and I used to meet a lot of young friends and colleagues who used to say fire corridor, fire path, fire route, fire exit. A lot of these, terms were very generally used. And once you use these terms in generic scenarios, you're not able to speak with the same kind of intent, expectations, and requirements. That becomes a big challenge. So what happens is that as colleagues, we should first understand what does the terminology mean. So I'm just giving you another 10-15 seconds to explain that, typically speaking, in any given exit, there are 3 different definitions which hold our meaning: exit access, exit, and exit discharge. Now, these ones are the terminologies from the National Building Code, but for people to understand, this diagram is much easier to understand. So exit access is a space in which you travel, you walk to go to an exit. And exit discharge is when you come out of the exit. So what is an exit? This is an exit. An exit is always closed by a fire door, fire walls. Now, why do you need to do an exit which is closed? Because when there is a fire in the building, the exits are able to help you to come out of the building through a enclosure which is 2 hours protected by walls and doors, to ensure that you are not then exposed to the risk of fire as you are descending the building from the upper floors to the downwards. Imagine a scenario when your staircase is open and you are there on a building which is like a 10-story building, and you are on the 5th floor, and the fire happens, you'll have to use a little imagination. The fire happens on the 3rd floor. And if your staircase over here is not a enclosed staircase, and imagine the staircase, what you see on the screen, is an open staircase, which we see a lot of them in malls, in many buildings, commercial buildings, a lot of buildings which we go to, like hospitals also. I see open staircases. Well, those open staircases are fine, but they do not qualify as exits. The staircases which are enclosed, which has a fire door, which has a panic bar, is the only staircase which you qualify as exit. You can go to a hotel, you can go to a mall where staircases are open. Those staircases are there for ease of commuting of people from one floor to the other floor. But those staircases are not the ones which you will see an exit written on top of it. They don't have a door, they don't have a panic bar. So once you have a staircase which is completely enclosed, you are on the 5th floor, the fire happens on the 3rd floor, you have to come out of the building, you open the panic bar of the 5th floor, get inside the staircase and start going down into the building, and you come out of the building through the yellow arrows. What you see on the screen, the yellow arrows on the ground floor, is where you are able to come out of the building. So basically, I always say staircases are, they are like your mothers. They protect you from any external damages. When you are with your mother, when you are in her lap, when you are in her enclosure, you are secure from any unfortunate instances outside. She will do everything to make sure that you are protected. So I always believe, when I look at buildings and staircases, I believe that staircases which we may not respect, which we may not even look into once in a while, we always use elevators. We never respect the staircases. We dump all our garbage into the staircase. We go and smoke cigarettes in the staircases. We always keep some kind of ashtrays over there. I think it's a lot of disrespect we are giving to something who's going to protect you when you need it the most. Because when nothing works, a staircase brings you down from the top of the building to the ground. And that's where a staircase protects you, like your mother protects you in your womb. Similarly, a staircase protects you from any harsh environments which might be existing in the spaces from which you are exiting outside. With that aspect, the exit access is a space where you are in the environment. Exit access is equals to travel distance. When you read in the National Building Code, 45 meters with sprinkler buildings, that's the space where you walk to reach to a staircase. And that's how the travel distance. Now, a lot of people would ask, how much time will it take to evacuate a building? I want to do a separate talk on that, and I want to tell you a very, very surprising time. A fact over here. I'll ask you a question now. I don't have an active audience here. We have got a passive audience. But unfortunately, I can't hear your replies, but hopefully in times to come, I would like to ask my audience, how much time do you think you have got to get out of the building if you are on a 25th floor of a building? The answer to that is you have got 2 hours to get out of the building. And I'll tell you how that 2 hours is arrived. Probably we'll do a separate discussion on evacuation strategies. This is basically how it goes about. An exit passageway is a large, so basically staircases are allowed in 2 ratios. 50% of staircases shall discharge either through direct discharge or through exit passageways, and 50% can go through large lobbies. Now, why this requirement was introduced? If you look at the earlier National Building Code, it says out of 2 staircases, 1 staircase should go directly. Well, the code meant to say that out of 2 staircases, 1 should go direct, means 50% should go direct. But when I work with my clients and some of the architects, very well-meaning people, not that they are wrong, but they just to tell me, Sandeep, it's written out of 2 staircases, 1 staircase. So you've got 15 staircases. So 1 staircase I'm taking out, and 14 staircases, the code is not saying anything to do. So we realize that, while people would be meaningful, we also have to be clear with what we want. Not that I want to challenge what people want. So if you really look at the staircase on the left and the staircase on the right, and if you're into those staircases, you're able to come out of the building without any challenge. The science of engineering of fire and life safety goes as, a lot of my friends and colleagues, when we work as consultants, we want to do travel distances, orthogonal path. Some of my colleagues would like to measure like this. And I said, guys, it's not fair to measure like this. I think as consultants, as people who trust us, we should do a measurement like this. Because today, if you really want to do a measurement which is as per A, you can't do, because you do not have the furniture layout available, you don't have the fit out. The code today does not tell you how to measure. It just says do a travel distance. So, well, if somebody is trusting you to do the things rightly, it would be unfair to measure it B. The most appropriate way is C. So if you measure your travel distances correctly, when the person is in distress, I'm telling you for sure, you will be acting like an angel to him, because you did your homework well, because you actually did the right travel distances under category C diagram, what you're seeing. And that's where I think we can work like an angel to help the people who are going to occupy my buildings, trusting us that we have done the right work. And a lot of times, people would even make circles. They'll say circles, circles, and they'll say this is what it is. And people would say, architects would a lot of times tell me, संदीप जी सर्कल चल जाता है. I said, देखो सर, चलने को तो सब कुछ चल जाता है. अभी कोड के अंदर इसको उतना ज्यादा हमने इनकॉर्पोरेट करने के लिए कमिटी ने नहीं टेकअप करा है. But our mission is not कि चल जाता है, क्योंकि चलने से एक बात नहीं बनती है. It is also our duty as part of as part of society to first educate, experience, share my experiences, share your experiences together to understand कि क्या करना चाहिए. Once we know क्या करना चाहिए, I think code will also adopt these things slowly and slowly. But that society understanding is very much required before we start saying we want it this way. So now we come to our topic of the day, fire tower. First, the whole idea was for 10 minutes, we need to understand terminology. You just can't jump into a discussion without a little background about why we are saying what. This is a fire tower definition, NBC 2005. And in fact, NBC 2005, NBC 1997. So we had NBC 97, we had NBC 2005, and both of them had the same version of the fire tower. And if you really read at an enclosed staircase, which can be approached from the various floors through landings or lobbies separated from both the floor. So if I try to draw a diagram of a fire tower from this terminology, probably what it comes to is the building on the right. So there is a staircase which can be approached, separated. I'm sorry. And then this is what it is. But that's how a fire tower may look like if you go by the definition of the code of 2005. And one of the buildings in London, this is what a fire tower is. This is an absolute replica of the definition of fire tower from the National Building Code. But is this the requirement? Is this what we are looking at? Is this what we are planning to provide? Is it that what we want to do buildings which are 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 stories? Is this to be replicated one top of each other? No, exactly not. So you see, we came back in the National Building Code, we understood fire tower is something which already exists in something which is known as the British standards. And the British standard had a version which is known as firefighting shaft. So we landed up doing this. And I'm sure a lot of audience who are there are not seeing this diagram for the first time, but the idea was to discuss this diagram a little bit more in detail. You see, this is a fire tower. I don't need to really explain to you again and again. It's an enclosed staircase. It's a combination of a staircase, a lobby, and a lift, period. Now, I'll tell you one thing very honestly. There are many mistakes in this diagram. And I can tell you for sure, there are many mistakes. Let me confess, deliberately done. I'll now tell you what are the mistakes. Have you seen that door? It looks very funny. It's got a kinking edge over there. Do you have a door like that with a kinking edge on the staircase? It's not correct. Do you see that lift? Where is the landing door of that lift? It looks very funny. It's got two edges in the concrete in the corner. One edge is small, other one is big. Very bad. Where is the handrail? A handrail is also not shown. Very incorrect. Are you showing the fire door in this fashion? Is this a fire door? What is the clear width of the fire door? Where exactly is your requirement which is shown of any kind of stretcher. You don't have a wheelchair over here. You don't have any requirement being mentioned. The reason the staircase looks very badly done, it looks, the width is very improperly drafted. The door is very improperly drafted. The lift looks very ugly. You can't make out this is a stretcher lift, this is a normal lift. Mistakes were done. Mistakes were done because it's not a GFC. It is not a good for construction drawing. It's a drawing to tell you the fundamental requirement of a fire tower, which comes from the combination of elevator, lobby, and staircase. That's it. It does not tell you anything beyond that. The National Building Code does not make GFC drawings good for construction. A lot of times I met authorities, and you will not even imagine, when authorities told me, they said, Sandeep, NBC में ना जो staircase है, it is on the left of the stair lift. So ये तो गलत बना रखा है, जो architect proposal दिया है, उसने तो कुछ गलत बना दिया. I said, sir, that was only for the purpose. नहीं. NBC में बनाया तो कुछ सोच के बनाया होगा. तो ये तो नहीं चलेगा ना. The problem is NBC में जो लिखा है उसको समझते हैं. NBC में ये लिखा है कि ये जो fire tower है, it has to get connected to your exit discharge by exit passageway. And exit passageway is nothing but a horizontal exit with the same characteristics as that of a staircase. That means nothing combustible, no obstructions, neat, clean path. And I will show you some animations with which we will get a better hang of it. Compartmentations you create, blah, 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 blah. Everybody is aware of this compartmentation requirements. So we create compartmentations. Now, another thing which comes out of compartmentation is, let's look at this diagram now. Do you really think that every compartment will require its own fire tower? The answer to that is no. Every compartment does not require ITS, its fire tower. It does not require a dedicated fire tower for yourself. You can have a combination of various compartments, but opportunity should be provided where compartment is able to lead to a fire tower. So if you really look at this diagram, what is happening? You're having compartment 1, compartment 2, compartment 3. Each of these compartments may have their own staircases, XYZ, and these compartments are able to come to a common fire tower, which will enable the elevator, the lobby, and the staircase to work as a centralized fire tower with all the various compartments. So the NBC would not require, to my understanding, and we can have a more clarification, more discussions on this. From my interpretation, from my understanding, each compartment does not require its dedicated fire tower. In this diagram, it is pretty clear that if you have one fire tower which is able to come through the various compartmentation. Now, one important thing to note over here is there's a refuge floor also. Now, this refuge area is also connected to the same fire tower because the code requires. Now, if you really look at the clause which is written on the red box on the right hand side, it says refuge areas shall be connected to the firefighting shaft without compromise, without having the occupants requiring to return to the building spaces through which the travel has occurred. So typically speaking, the refuge brings you back into this. Now, I'll explain you further. You will be very glad to know how. And the most important in this webinar is that we will also plan to discuss with you things which we might propose and considering in our futuristic changes. And this is the podium where you can help us to know these proposals which are going to be coming up, how sensible they are. And this is where we would encourage you to come back and tell us these provisions which we are going to be discussing further ahead, how sensible would they be as we come further ahead. So with that background, this becomes the fire tower, which basically brings all the compartment together, connects the refuge to the fire tower by a 2-hour rated firewall. Now, fire barriers are not allowed over here. You need to have a fire rated wall with a fire door. On the planning aspects, what you need in a fire tower is pressurization. So in all these years, the design did not consider to integrate the staircases and fireman lift. I go to many buildings. All of you go to many buildings. I'll come to you in a while on that. You know, these buildings have staircases sitting in the north and the elevator sitting in the south. They don't talk to each other. The whole idea was to bring them together. Now I'll tell you why this was good, but very importantly, We also create pressure differentials. Fireman lift has to have a lobby. The code does say that if you can't do a lobby, you can provide a hoistway. That does not hold good as far as fire tower is concerned. In a fire tower, you necessarily need to have a lobby which is pressurized. I'm basically right now talking about spaces which are not naturally ventilated. I'll come to you on that. So what you see on this slide over here is you create a pressure differential. So a pressure differential in the lobby is 25-30. In the staircase, delta P 50 makes it 80. Why have we created a pressure differential here? You see, Purane Zamana mein we used to have that killa. The king is inside, it's got one baton of an army, another baton of an army. So you create circles, you create obstructions, you create scenarios with which if the king feels that he's exposed to risk, there is also an underground passageway. There is something what we used to call it, and I'm sure my other colleagues will know, Tehkhana. So we create a Tehkhana, we create an opportunity where people are able to, the king is evacuated out of the palace through that Tehkhana, and he takes a course because you cannot take an opportunity of exposing the king to the enemy. In this case, the enemy is fire. So first, the fire is happening in what we know, what we call as an event zone. What you see here is an event zone. You create a pressure differential to keep the fire and smoke out. You create an additional pressure differential to keep the staircase more safer. Now, if we go further on this, here is an example where we got this drawing from one of our architects, and he said, this is a building we want you to approve. And I said, what is happening in this building? The lift core, as you see, is in the L shape. You have got 2 staircases and you got many number of lifts. Is there a problem? A lot of buildings do get passed like this, but it did not have a fire tower. So what do? These are the lifts you have, and these are the staircases. And here is your fire hose cabinet. And where is your fireman? Your fireman comes out into the space, takes the fire hose cabinet from the space for fighting fire. The risk with which the fireman is exposed is phenomenal because he has to come out of the staircase in the space which is occupied by tenants, by people. He has to unroll the fire hose where the fire is already occurring. Now you come to another diagram. What we did, we created this, what is known as a fire tower. Let the lifts remain as they are. We integrated a lift with a staircase, and we introduced these areas which are known as staging areas. Staging areas which are meant for firemen to stage themselves. I'll tell you how they will benefit. Once you stage themselves, you have got a fire hose reel in the staging area. The fireman reaches the staging area through the staircase, takes the hose and enters the space which is on the fire through the lobby. Now what is left is that these staircases are normal staircases. These lifts are normal lifts. They are not fire lifts. They are not to be used by the firemen. But what is to be used by the firemen is these ones what you see on the screen. These ones remain as they are. So what we did was we just told our developer to be on the safe side of it. Please help me to provide me another set of 2 elevators with the staircases, and that's going to give you enough resilience in the design. And how does it help? Now this is a very nice picture which actually you can understand better. How does the fire tower help the firemen? This is the staging area. So you get yourself staged. Once you are staging yourself, you are able to take the hose connection, and then you are able to enter into the space from that staging area into the space which is on fire. Now, one important thing which, in fact, you would realize in this diagram, which I was able to locate and I am able to put across, is that it has got a fire hydrant which is inside the staircase. Now, you would also see one more important thing over here, that it's a class 1 hydrant piping system. And in NBC, or the requirements for the hydrants in our country is class 3. Class 3 is the first aid hose reel with a hydrant valve. Class 1 is only hydrant valve. Class 2 is hose reel. Class 3 is 1 plus 2 is equals to 3. So in India, we use something which is class 3. So we have actually shifted the fire hose reels into the staging areas, which is in the lobby. Now, very surprisingly, you would be also knowing that I would like to tell you, when I started working on international projects, I understood, I said, why they are not providing first aid hose reels? The international code would say the occupants are expected to leave the building. It's only the fireman who has to use the hydrants. We have been using first aid hose reels in our country for very long, and it has been part and parcel. So there is a lot of thought process which goes into providing a first aid hose reel. In a parlance, let's say in US or in Europe, the first hose reels are not provided. Class 1 hydrants are provided. Class 1 hydrants, and very surprisingly, the fireman has to carry their own hose. If you see John Travolta, Ladder 49, one of the famous movies of the firefighter's life, the firemen will always carry the hose on their back. They will never rely upon your and my hose, which we give them. Because for them, it's a matter of life and death when they are entering into the building. So all they need is a piped connection. They open the hose, they open the valve, they put on their hose, and they go into the scene of fire to fight the fire. They do not apply upon the builder provided hose. They polish their hose, they maintain their hose, they carry it on their back, and they put it on the landing valve as they enter into the spaces. So coming back to this point, this fire tower basically is an amazing design to allow the firefighters to enter into the areas over there. Now, this is where the staging area was there, and that's what we have planned across as far as fire tower is concerned. Now, I'll show you a picture of fire tower in Singapore. I was there last year in October. I went around, there was some free time. That's the picture. You can see from here, you have got a hose reel inside, and that's what a fire tower looks like in a building which is in Singapore. They have provided a hose reel, they've got a talkback, they have got an emergency telephone, and what they have made over here is known as a fireman's lift. So this is a picture of a fire tower which I took in Singapore, which basically is the same fire tower which we have also adopted in our designs, which has got an emergency talkback, MCP, gong, landing valve, a pressurized lobby, also a fire lift, and a direct, what you see on the picture here is a direct exit to the staircase, which brings you out of the building. Now, having said that, very importantly, I want to talk to you something which probably we might come up in times to come. Refuge area. Now, that's a topic we have already done fire tower, and a lot of us, are understanding fire tower fundamentals. But let's understand, this is the change which we expect to bring, area of refuge. Okay, that's a building which you would imagine we would have in India, correct? A building which is tall building. The first refuge comes at 24-meter height. The next refuge comes at 39-meter height. The next refuge comes 39 plus 15, another 15, and so forth. So you keep creating refuges in the building as the building progresses in height. As you keep progressing in height, you keep creating refuges. Now, this is where our present design comes to. And well, we can debate about 24 meters. Then if I have a floor which is not 24, it is at 26, then is it right? Now, a lot of discussions do happen on that, but fundamentally 24, 15, 15, 15, 15 is what the code is about. So let's say we have a building which is like 300-meter tall. This computer screen will become smaller. I have to zoom out to show you a 300-meter tall building which has got refuges at every 15 meters. It will be a building to be seen. But now, having said that, one important thing I like to show you before we get into this refuge areas, let me show you something which I learned. What is the density of a refuge? Architects, you call them up. No problem. Do a total of floor A plus floor B. A plus B is equals to Y. Let's say C. C multiplied by 0.3 is the area you have to put to refuge. Provide one wheelchair and stretcher and done. And calculation of a refuge can be done on your airline boarding card in half a minute if you know the occupancy of the floor, period. But tell me, how many of us would imagine what is 0.3 square meter per person? Have you seen a picture of 0.3 square meter per person? This is a very nice picture I want to show you. This is 0.28 square meter per person. Can you imagine? 0.28 square meter per person is what is going to give, is the picture what you see on the right. And the NFPA says when people are crowded, so that each person occupies less than 0.65, and I'm reading it because it's very interesting to read. Movement approaches a shuffle. When a person occupies less than 0.28, jam point is approached. And all movements by the occupants come to a virtual stop. I would imagine we should create some experiment back in India to show what would 0.3 occupancy mean in a refuge. When you start packing up people at a density of 0.3, and the NFPA says it comes to a jam point. And when you're at 0.65, you are at a shuffle. So when we can talk about hospitals, and hospitals are, progressive horizontal evacuation design criteria are separate. But can you imagine 0.3 would be what? It would be a nightmare for you to pack up your family, your wife, your child, yourself, maybe one of your cousins who's there for your shopping, and pack up everybody at 0.28. I feel very scared. So that's what is there. And this is back to our building where we were. And these are areas of refuges in yellow lines which we have identified. These ones are yellow lines, refuge areas. Very nice. And tell me something, the refuge areas are meant for who? Is it meant for somebody like you and me? Is it meant for people like you and me to go to refuge areas? Well, no. If you see the sign of a refuge internationally, you see a wheelchair over there. You go and Google around the symbol of a refuge area. It's never shown a happy man standing on a refuge. It's always people who need assistance, who have to be on refuge. Now, there could be an old man, there could be a man on the wheelchair, there could be a pregnant lady, there could be an old lady, there could be many people who need assistance. And those people can be in buildings. But you have got, these ones are the area of refuges in the yellow lines, what you see on the screen. But are these people going to be only on those yellow lines? If your wife works in an office and you are going your family way, and she works on a 14th floor, and that's not a refuge area, would you tell her boss to shift her to a department which has got a refuge? Because you're on a family way and she will need some assistance. So she's working on a floor other than the refuge areas. What do? You tell your boss that she would request her boss, sir, I can't work on the 14th floor. I don't have a refuge floor there. I want to go down. Your father is working in an office. He's little old. Do you think you've broken your foot now? Come on. You can also break your foot. You will on a wheelchair for next 2 months, but you want to go to your office. And the code is working towards Saksham Bharat. We are making spaces which are good for people who need assistance, people who are needing, support mechanism. So the government plan of doing a Saksham Bharat leads the national building codes to provide you facilities which are handicapped, oriented. So what do? You have to take yourself to a department, your father or your wife, to places or floors which are refuge. Well, any of these people can be anywhere. They can be in these red zones, the zones which are not meant for these people to be there. So very, very unlucky that you've broken your back, you've broken your foot, and you are on one of the floors where you have an issue that you don't have a refuge. So what do you do in that case? And if you are on a 14th floor, you don't have a refuge, you need assistance, you are on a wheelchair, what the hell are you going to do? Is your friend is going to take you into the elevator? Elevators are not to be used by people themselves. It has to be assisted. So what is this? The possible shape of things to come. Area of refuge at all floors. So means what? If you start identifying in the new code an area of refuge on all the floors, then it becomes more meaningful. What would that mean? All these people whom we talked about are still there, but now the building doesn't look like this. In the possible way we are looking at the code to get changed, the building will look like this now. It looks very nice, very neat, clean, nice building. Architects would love it. But then what do? You create this. And what you've done? You have created a smaller area of refuge everywhere on all the floors. So once you've done this, what happens? These people could be anywhere in the entire building. And these people can enter into the area of refuges, whichever floor they are at. You don't have to be on the refuge floor. I will stop using possibly the word refuge floor. We will start using the word area of refuge. So if you look at global, they don't say refuge floor. We say area of refuge. So once you created an area of refuge integrated with your fire tower, you've done well. Now what happens? If any one of these people need assistance, they would be brought down through the fire tower onto the ground floor. Medical ambulance facilities provided to these people to assist them. Able-bodied people, God has been kind, I am able-bodied. Able-bodied people leave the building by staircases. People who need assistance, it's my and your duty to bring them into this space. Okay? We bring my friend, my colleague, my colleague who's pregnant, my old colleague who is not very well healthy. I bring him into this yellow space. I said, Dinesh, Naresh, Suresh, whoever the colleague is, we say, sit back here. I'm leaving. Somebody will come and help you. And I take that staircase on the left and I go out of the building. That's it. But I'm happy that I got my friend into that space before I vacated the building, because that friend of mine will now be brought down by the elevator and be assisted being out. So what's it is? That's what you do. A fire tower and the refuge. You start creating lobbies of sizes which are good for handling a certain percentage of people on a given floor. Now, having said that, a more study would be required to see on a typical floor how many people would need assisted evacuation. That is a survey. We can do that. Why can't we do that? Let me say to you, 5% people out of 100 people would require assisted evacuation. Well, not 5, 8, 9, 6, 4, 3, 2. Some percentage we can arrive. That number of percentage of people, we make a lobby, we stage them, we get out of the building, and then is what we do. So basically, this is what it is. This is a pressurization. Now the fire tower, another question, there are special notes, and I'm going to conclude this in next 5 minutes now. I'm pretty close to eating away whatever time I was given. So having said that, the fire tower, if you really look at, there are special notes. Is the fire towers are naturally, if the lobbies and the staircases are naturally ventilated, shafts may not be enclosed and fire towers may not be provided. Now, what was the reason for doing that? A lot of times, we said, this diagram has got a door. It's always to be understand that the diagrams are more severe, possibly are having more detailed requirements than the text. You have to read the diagram and get influenced with the diagram. But if the text is there to support or to provide you exemptions, the text actually supersedes the diagram. So there is a way to read a code. There is a way with which exemptions overrule the rule. So if you have an exemption by notes, those exemptions take the precedence of the code. So that's where, if it is naturally ventilated, now what made us do this? Let's understand. Have you seen one of these WhatsApp videos which come? You see a video which has got fire, which is smoke coming out of the building. A naturally ventilated building is the most suited building. The more you make buildings tinker boxes, you enclose them. If you go to US, the outside environment is very harsh. You go to Dubai, outside environment is very harsh. You go to Europe, a lot of cold regions, climates are there. They pack up their building. They do envelope. They do the building which is completely enveloped to not allow the cold to come inside. When you do that, you're able to actually make sure that there is no cold current entering into the building. In India, हम सबसे पहले रूम में जाते हैं, खिड़की खोलते हैं. We want fresh air. Although there are problems, we don't have fresh air as much it should be, but nevertheless, as a part of our culture, we believe in naturally ventilated buildings. And when the fire is happening in a naturally ventilated building, the relief is the most suited. Koi pankha, koi electrical system cannot provide you a better means to do smoke mitigation as a natural system would. It will let the smoke drift away into the environment and leaving the building with lesser smoke inside the spaces. Problem happens when the building is dabba. It's closed, seal packed, creates smoke, you have a problem. The smoke finds smallest of the spaces to go inside and block it. And that's where you need to do pressurization of these staircases when it's a closed building. But when it is naturally ventilated, no problem. You are able to take away the smoke into the natural current of the building. Now, another thing is, we talk about, I have two questions here. In a typical residential building, where I can provide natural ventilation, do I need an enclosed fire tower? The answer is no. You do not need. In a project where I do not have opportunity of natural ventilation and I'm planned to pressurization of the hoistway, since I'm not able to provide lobby, can I avoid lobby at the fire tower and not to pressurize the same? The answer is no. Now I've explained this to you with a diagram. See this? The diagram on the left is wrong. On a fire tower scenario, if you land up pressurizing the hoistway and you don't give a lobby, where is the opportunity of the staging of the friend whom we talked about a while before? A pregnant lady, an old colleague, a colleague on a wheelchair, where do you stage them? So on a fire tower, you have no choice but to provide a lobby. So this is where you create a lobby where you are able to have the firemen in the lobby or your people who need assistance. By the time you have gone into the staircase, you leave your colleague into the lobby and you get out of the building. The fireman comes in. One of my colleagues, Tushar, had done a presentation last time in which he had animated and shown how the fireman goes into the lift car, goes up the level, takes these people out, bring them down on the ground floor and take them out. So in a project where I can avoid lobbies, you can do that as per code. It is allowable, but in a fire tower, it is forbidden to omit the lobby. So you have to have it. Now, external access, another question is, this is one of the buildings in which we have shown fireman access. Do you think this is what it is? A lot of time, this fireman access is being required for the firemen to come from outside and to take out the people. But the best thing is, if you have created a fire tower, you have a fire tower which you see in this picture, wherein the staircase and the lift is inside what you see, the brown wall. This is a fire tower from outside. The fireman actually, what you see on bottom below is the green door. The fireman arrives to the fire tower, and then from the outside of the building, he is able to reach to the refuge as well as to evacuate the people through the assisted means. So a fire tower actually does two things. It lets the fireman reach to the floor of fire through a staging area from where he can guard himself and enter into the space to fight the fire. Second, it allows the people who need physical assistance to come out to be staged at the lobby and then being brought down by the elevator. And this is where they are brought down. And once they come down onto the ground floor by a corridor, they are able to be brought out to be used by a lobby. Now let's see this video for a while. I'm showing you by this video, which one of my colleagues has done in office by a. Now what we see over here is a fire tower. It has got a lobby, it has got an elevator, it has got a staircase, it has got refuge areas which we have drafted in magenta colors. And as you can see, these kind of areas are connected through the fire tower. And once they are connected to the fire tower, these areas, if you see here, this area of a lobby is connected through a corridor into this, what is known as a fire tower. So this refuge area, which presently in the National Building Code is required at every 15 meters. So in this diagram, what you see, a refuge area, then 2 floors skipped off or 3 floors skipped off, depending on the floor to floor height. Now 15-meter refuge is also creating a little problem for us in IT buildings, where the floor to floor height can go up to 4.2 meters. So moment your floor to floor height goes 4.2 meters, you have a catch-22 scenario. Your 15 meters is पुराने जमाने वाला, 3 meter floor to floor height, 5 floor के बाद refuge लगाएंगे. But the moment now the building heights are going up, you need more floor to floor heights. People lifestyle is changing. So as your floor heights are increasing, my refuges are becoming more closer to each other. So it doesn't really making too much of sense. So over here, my refuges you can see at this location. And once you have a refuge over here, they get connected into the fire tower. And what you see is these two compartments are also connected to the fire tower. You can also see the refuge to be connected by the fire tower. And this fire tower is then going all the way to the ground. And then from the ground, you are able to go out. So now, if you really look at the next slide, this is what all put together. So what you see here is a 2-hour fire rated wall. Over here, you got the staircase, which brings you down. So what you see over here is meaningful. You got a corridor which connects the refuge areas into the fire tower. You also have got scenarios where the staircases go down. This is where the fire lift is. This is what you see exit discharge. So what is happening is that the refuge area is then connected to the fire tower by an exit passageway to the outside of the building. Very, very apt. Once this is done, do you really think we have an opportunity for the firemen to risk their lives to actually evacuate people from, let's say, 17 stories or 17 stories or 27 stories or 50 stories? That's not possible to do. If you have a fireman lift, which needs reliable power, if you have a staircase, and if you have got a meaningful construction done, you are able to bring the people down to the ground by a modern way of using assisted evacuation by the fire tower. And if hopefully we are able to remove the refuges after every 15 meters, we create a much smaller space on every floor. That's what Burj Khalifa has. On an 800-meter tall tower, if you start creating refuges like that, and those refuges would have a lot of wind pressure, I can tell you at a height of 150 meters, even if you're creating refuges the way we are presently thinking to create, there could be a big risk to the people who are there on the building at a height of 150 meters, 180 meters. There could be a lot of wind velocity. So you need to really keep these people inside the building, not exposing them to a naturally ventilated areas at the 150 meters level. So that is what it is. And I'll discuss something more about evacuation later on. This is where, the whole thing turns about. So now one picture, it's got compartment 1, compartment 2, it has got a fire tower, it has got a refuge area, it's got exit passageways, it's got level of exit discharge, it's got exit access. This diagram is very, very comprehensive with respect to understanding the terminology. I always feel, and we are coming to end of it. I'm sorry, I think I might have exceeded a little bit, but everybody feels my engineering is the best. And I always feel, in India, a lot of my colleagues might be comfortable with Hindi, I'm not very sure. But I always see this, mujhe lagta hai scenario is something which we will really need to get out. Many people I've met, I've never seen this. Then everybody has got name dropping. I was in London, Dubai, New York. हमने तो देखा नहीं है. NFPA में क्या लिखा है? I will send you my inputs. Did I not send you my inputs? UK code में क्या लिखा है? China code is also good, I think. UAE code is better. Why this is written in NBC? ये तो हमें कुछ समझ नहीं आ रहा. I think कोड ने कुछ गलत लिख दिया है. और सबसे अच्छी बात क्या होती है कि मैं पिछले 15 साल से ऐसा ही कर रहा हूँ. मैं पिछले 15 साल से कर रहा हूँ, मैं बिल्कुल ठीक कर रहा हूँ और मुझे लगता है कभी कुछ गलत नहीं हुआ. So I think this is where we have this problem of, ये मुझे लगता है अब काम नहीं करेगा. We have to research, we have to collate, we have to collaborate, we have to understand the questions. And this anti-jugaad, we have to work on anti-jugaad India. This jugaad in India, which is now accepted by Cambridge Dictionary, should be removed eventually. That should be our mission. We have given this word jugaad to the world, but I think we have to erase this word also. And as a dedicated youngsters who work with us, I have a great team of my engineering fellows. I am so happy. People are complaining, मेरे लोग काम नहीं कर रहे हैं, office के लोगों को problems हैं. I've got a beautiful team. I've got a very, very passionate team, and we are on a mission of anti-जुगाड़. ये जुगाड़ से कुछ नहीं होने वाला. We need to learn. We need to understand. We need to make up our understanding. We need to unlearn. सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है कि हम अनलर्न नहीं करना चाहते, क्योंकि जो हमने पढ़ा हुआ है वो हमने बस पढ़ा हुआ है, और आजकल वैसे ही पढ़ना कम हो गया है. सो a lot of time, we are not reading, we are only listening. And I think in this lockdown, we have downloaded books which we could not have. We purchased books. There was problems, funds, ये है वो है. I said कोई बात नहीं, funds आ जाएंगे. Nobody is going to take away our money. We'll get money. We are very positive people. No problem. But the point is, we have to first unlearn and then relearn. I think that's a time to re-talk. And the code is of my country, my people. I'm very, very glad that you have heard me. I'm equally excited to reply back to your questions. So let's now stop. I will stop myself for a while and let's talk for a while. So I'll keep myself away. Let other colleagues of FSAI take up so that we start interacting further. Thank you.
Right, sir. Thank you, Mr. Goel. It was a very enlightening presentation, and I'm sure we would have learned a lot of the things which are related to fire towers and fire safety. So by now, I would request if there is someone who is having any questions, so they can raise up the questions. So we'll just take up the question answers.
Only very few questions. I do not know for what reason it is. So let's see. We have got a fire tower. Does it have a sprinkler in the ceiling or sidewall? Well, you see, fire tower needs to have sprinklers as far as lobbies are concerned. I am very passionate to provide even sprinklers in staircases, which we are still debating with a lot of colleagues. But whether it is sidewall or whether it is ceiling, ideally ceiling, but you should have a sprinkler in the lobby of the fire tower for sure. Well, mid-land staircases, I always believe we should have sprinklers. I feel very worried when people will say वो sprinkler चल पड़ेगा. वो sprinkler क्यों चलेगा? जब कोई seat of fire होगी तभी चलेगा, otherwise नहीं चलेगा. So in case लोग कहते हैं कि अगर staircase में sprinkler चल पड़ेगा, people will fall. Now I want to ask you one question. वो sprinkler क्यों चलेगा? वो sprinkler, it will start actuating when you have got fire. Once you have a fire, is it necessary for me to douse that fire? Because in any case, that staircase is no more usable by the people in case there is a fire which is already burning inside the staircase. So that is a reply to it. The FHC is the part of the fire tower which makes it hidden from the corridors. Is there a regulation about visibility of the FHC? Mr. Samit Panchinda has asked this question. Sir, FHC is to be the part of the fire tower, but if you have written, now I want to ask you one question. Why would you like the fire FHC to be visible from the corridor? Well, I don't think so. You need the visibility of the FHC from the corridor. It is inside the fire tower lobby. When the fireman will come, he will take the FHC and enter into the corridor from the protected lobby. But still, if you feel that this FHC should be visible to the people, everybody now we know that a fire tower has to have a FHC. So if you have a FHC written on a floor, it means you open the door, you will find a fire hose cabinet inside it. And please remember that the code also requires you to show the location of the fire hose cabinet on the lobby side. So you need to make an AutoCAD drawing, put it into the lobby, into the fire tower, and which will say is pure floor plan pe where exactly are the FHCs. Refuge area on floor, will there be office or vacant space? Sir, refuge area on floor will always be vacant spaces. You are not allowed to make any occupancy on the refuge areas. In fact, refuge areas now are very clear not to even provide any electromechanical. As I showed you, a lot of people put their air conditioning outdoor units. वो भी allowed नहीं है. So that is what it is. You can't have any occupancy on the refuge area. In future, can we think refuge areas can be replaced with Well-designed fire towers, yes, I think I made that that presentation that we should remove, hopefully, refuge floors. We should only have refuge areas and integrate it into the lobby of the fire tower. Okay, okay. How many fire towers required if 4 staircases are there? Well, you can't really reply this, that how many fire towers you require. You require fire towers, compartment should have an access to a fire tower. If there are 4 staircases, you may even have 1 fire tower. You might even have 4 fire towers, depending upon the accessibility of the spaces to reach to the fire tower. The refuge area will have to be redesigned as a post-pandemic approach. Will that? No. You don't really need to redesign the refuge areas post-pandemic. I don't see any reason for doing that, please. If you have thoughts, why should it be redesigned? Please share with us. Refuge area will be removed and integrated in the fire tower in future. We are working towards it. We have a reason to do that, and we are discussing about it. We need friends like you to also do their research, because if I keep speaking back to the committee, they would say, you know, why you are wanting to change things to that level. I think we need to work together to bring those changes. With respect to residential, I have seen post 2016 NBC where the fire towers are not being mandated in high-rise buildings. Sir, I would like to tell Mr. Akshay Garg that you would need a fire tower even in a residential building. In fact, to be very honest with you, fire tower in a residential building always existed. By and large, आपकी और मेरी residential building है 15 stories की, आपकी lift भी वहीं पर है और आपकी staircase भी वहीं पर है. हमारी major problems थी commercial buildings, जहां पर की lift north होती थी और staircase south होती थी. और जैसा कि मैंने diagram में दिखाया, you have got staircases somewhere, lift somewhere. The poor firefighter enters into the space by the staircase. The fire hose cabinet is not into his reach, and he has to go into a burning area. So commercial buildings have more of a problem for us rather than residential buildings. So actually, the moment you see a combination of a staircase, a lobby, and a lift, your objective is met. Okay. How about an external mechanized evacuation system? No, sir, I don't think so. If external mechanized evacuation system, जब हमारे पास इतना, we have a good system which we are working, we are trying to discuss, we want to use our best energy to do it. Why do you think we need to have an external mechanism and evacuation system? It could be always a risk. It will be a very big risk to have an external mechanism, evacuation system, electromechanical dependability. Okay. Somebody has asked me, do you mean we can avoid refuge floors if we provide a decent size in fire shaft? The answer to that in future is yes, hopefully. Shushmita has asked that question. The answer to that is hopefully the answer to your question is yes, because it makes a lot of sense to do areas of refuges on all floors. What about RSET and ASET time when people stored in refuge areas at every floor? Well, you see, in a refuge area, there's no ASET, RSET. You have got space where you get your people and they are there for a specified duration to help the assisted evacuation by the firemen, by fire elevators. So you do not really have an ASET, RSET as far as refuges are concerned. Travel distance in cold illustration is from the door of the corridor. It should from the corner of the, yes, I think I need to correct myself. Mathur Saab has told me, yes, sir, thank you. I will correct myself, but it is not from the door, sir. I have measured the travel distance. The tail of the arrow starts from the corner of the room. The head of the arrow, Mathur Saab, is still at the darwaza, and it is still to go further to the staircase. The idea was that people would make mistakes. The tail of the arrow is always the farthest end of the room. In India, people are not disciplined. I'm sorry. That's a statement which I would like to withdraw. I think we are very disciplined. The COVID is showing how systematic and how well educated we are in comparison to many Western world. There is no protest in India for COVID, lockdown, and you can see globally there have been protests everywhere when people are not accepting lockdown. So I think we are disciplined, sir. Fire hose reel can be on mid landing. The answer to that is no, sir. You can't have a fire hose lead on a mid landing because that will hamper your evacuation problems, issues. May I know pressurization fans and staircase? It works to close the fire doors. It works to close the fire doors. May I know pressurization? It works. No. The fire doors are always closed in a staircase. You don't leave the staircase fire doors open. They're always closed. How a fire tower is pressurized, how distribution happens, and how the air quality and static calculated. Mr. Chakravarti sir, no problem. There are many codes and standards. Consultants are there. We have a lot of energy and understanding about the distribution of fire tower lobby pressurization. You can look at NFPA 92. You can look at ASHRAE application handbook. And we have got good energy and understanding by many engineers who can do this very well. Do we have to install a fire curtain as well as fire doors in refuge areas? As of now, you can have fire curtains for areas of refuges presently. That is what the code allows you to do, that you can provide a fire curtain in the refuge areas, but the entry to the refuge areas has to be through a fire door. You are providing a fire curtain to isolate the refuge areas from the seat of fire, which might happen in the space. Therefore, fire curtains are allowed in the refuge areas as of now. How do we provide fire barriers in refuge surrounding when it is covered by facade glass? You can have fire curtains to isolate the refuge areas. Nowadays, green buildings and other areas, you need to have a lot of glass with which you are able to see the natural light coming in. So we can provide a fire curtain there. Okay. How do we provide fire barriers? Staircase, PP fans, purpose, please. Why NBC is not revised after knowing the errors in it? Who is responsible for it, sir? Sir, we are responsible for it. We can't have one person responsible. NBC is under revision. We also have problems. People do not give really inputs. We get many questions in which we get questions and a lot of suggestions without supplementing with international codes. So I think we have a problem. We need to really be very vigilant society to improve the code which belongs to you and me. I understand there are hoists and cabin outside building to take down the occupants. Mr. Barun from no, sir, I think there may be technologies available, but those technologies could be big risk if you are taking people outside. People also have a psychology of using fireman lift instead of going down through staircase. Very risk. You cannot use a fireman lift yourself. You are not qualified to use a fireman lift. Is there any color code for fire FHC to get highlighted? Very good input. We would like to work upon a color code for fire, smoke check lobbies. We are working on that. In fact, we have been telling our authorities that when architects are giving you drawings, tell them to give you a site plan on which the fire tower entry should be very clearly marked. I think I'll have to stop these questions in next 2-3 minutes probably. Their list is long. Requirement of naturally ventilated shaft. No, you don't need to do a lift well pressurization in naturally ventilated shafts. The answer to that as per code is no. What should be the ideal area of refuge area? Refuge areas are presently identified. 2 floors population gross multiplied by 0.3. People crowding will happen in small refuge areas at every floor. No, well, I think your concern is right, but you will not have small refuge areas. You have to do the right refuge area calculations if you want to do it at all floors. Shouldn't all the functional logic fire towers incorporate into the local fire regulations instead of just providing for the sake of approval? Well, it is there as a part of our requirement. Connecting corridors between staircase and refuge areas should have pressurization. The answer to that is yes. Mr. Jagdish has answered. Thank you so much. This is a very right answer. You need to have, the right kind of this. Prabhuda is there. Purna is there, one of my good colleague. Hi, Sandeep. Should we have a discussion on leaving the lobby in case of unpressurized if we have two corridors that are used to approach the fire tower with smoke exhausted? Well, yes, I agree with you. We need to do some mechanism with which we need to keep the lobby of the fire tower being pressurized to keep the smoke away outside and to keep that area as a staging area. There could be electromechanical challenges, but yes, of course, we have got very good mechanical engineers. We can sort out that by various kind of systems. I don't see that as a challenge. Does the fire lift shaft should open on the terrace? Well, my answer to that is no, but there are a lot of people who have got different opinion. If you ask me, my opinion, fire shaft opening on terrace? My answer is no, of course. What is the flooring, type of flooring in fire exits? Normal flooring, you do not have any specific flooring required in fire exits specified. Actual space required per person of refuge areas, we are doing a research work. I understand 0.3 seems to be very, very problematic for me. What exactly the sprinkler should be installed in the lift lobby when the sprinkler operates? Sir, don't worry. If the lift lobby, the sprinkler will actuate, Mr. Rajesh, it will actuate only when there is fire. So if there is fire, I should first look at to extinguish that fire by actuation of the sprinkler. So I should not bother about the sprinkler getting actuated. Why wooden door is necessary against steel for doors? No, there's no such. Why wooden and why not steel? The code requires you to make a choice as far as this. In the smoke compartmentation slide, I observed one of the compartment did not have access to the refuge. No, I think I'm wrong. I need to correct myself, Prona. There could be a last minute hitch. You need to have both the compartments. Well, yes, I want to tell you, the compartments will go into the exit passageways, and from there I can go to the refuge. So we can have a discussion once again. Maybe we can open up the slide, and I'll be happy to talk to you if you would have taken a picture of that. Which sprinkler should be used in staircase? Well, to my understanding, standard response 68 degree, maximum height of industrial building, that is something to do with development control rules. Lift pressurization, residential building, yes, you need to do lift pressurization, lift well pressurization in residential building depending upon table 7 if you need to provide non-naturally saturated. ASET and RSET, when people in refuge, we have talked about it, near a fire tower, high-rise residential. Distance between two fire tower? No, there's no distance between two fire tower. Every compartment should be able to reach to a fire tower. Emergency fire facade glass early level can occupy evacuation through spider and grab. No. You do not have any evacuations by ropes. Is there any rule to materials can be used for fire tower? Rule floors and walls? Well, there is a requirement for exits to be the type of surface flame spread is already specified in National Building Code. There is a certain limitation of the surface flame spread. I think there are many questions still. I would ask my organizers to intervene and tell me that I need to probably now stop. What is the travel time for high-rise building in case of fire? The travel time could be as good as 2 hours, sir. So thank you so much. I think there are a couple of questions which I respect and I would like to answer them. I will take it from my FSAI team and we would like to really get back to you in some of the replies which we can provide you. I am very honored for you to put so many nice questions, very apt questions. So I'll make sure that I will try to reply. You can have my mail ID from my colleagues, and in case we will be able to help you with your replies. I'm sorry for stopping now because I'm gone beyond my time limit, which I was doubtful about. So Mr. Dharkar and my other senior colleagues are there. I would take a pause and request my colleagues to please take over.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Goel, for attending all the questions. And I suppose most of the queries which were asked are resolved. So I would like to thank Orient Fire Curtain India for sponsoring this session. I would also like to thank Mr. Suresh Menon, who is FSAI National President, for joining us. I would request Mr. Gill to kindly say a few words about this session, and then we'll proceed.
Thank you, Guneet. It is a pleasure to address all the participants. It was really delightful to see 300 plus participants joining this webinar. After a long time, we had such a good participation in our event. So thank you very much, Mr. Sandeep Goel. I would just share one experience which myself and Mr. Sandeep Goel had while we were waiting outside the office of Director Delhi Fire Service, and we had a very healthy but short discussion with one of the operational fire brigade officers about the elevators going up to the terrace floor. And there we, myself and Mr. Goel, both were discussing that we need to have a platform where different stakeholders can come together and present their viewpoint. Today it has been a delight to actually listen to Mr. Sandeep Goel. He is such a passionate architect and planner that I am very sure that all the young architects and engineers might have got immensely benefited. So the fraternity, the fire fraternity, will always remain obliged to him for all the contribution which he has given for framing the National Building Code and the kind of the standards which we have been able to adapt, where we can very proudly say that our National Building Code is quite matching the international standard. So with these words, I will stop here. Once again, thank you, Mr. Goel, for this last 1.5 hours has been a very, very useful time spent together. And I am very sure that the participant would have also got immensely benefited. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Mr. Devendra Gill, sir, for your kind words. So I would now ask Mr. Pankaj Dharkar if he could say a few words.
So good evening to everyone, and I think what a delight to listen to Goel ji, and very dear subject of all of us who are in this line. Post the new code came, it was a mystery to many of us in terms of fire tower, and many of the state fire officers started insisting for a complete tower standing by the side of building, and that was a beginning. But I think towards last 2-3 years we have demisted that, and I think Sandeep has a great role how this fire tower is evolving, and we now understand, and I'm sure most of us present today have got enlightened with the quality presentation, and the way I think Sandeep handled the questions was amazing. I was really happy to see the speed at which he was responding with so many questions. So I think, Sandeep, you need to repeat this once again. I think a lot of people must have missed this golden opportunity, and we would like that you continue the spirit and passion, which is always amazing, Sandeep. Thanks, Baga Saab, and also Gurmeet ji, to cover this important subject. I think this is fantastic. And while I will like to also once again request all the people present here at this hour to help us on a COVID task force assignment which President Suresh Menon has given to me. We have been posting the mail and request to all of you to come forward and donate for COVID task force, starting 1,000 rupees, anything. You just come forward, help us. We have been doing wonderful work in city of Mumbai, in the slums of Mumbai, in fact in Ahmedabad wall city, and also only yesterday the machines reached Bangalore also to the police department. So once again, very earnest request, and thank you, Sandeep, for that fascinating experience. And I was really impressed with the quality questions, and especially coming from people like Purva and all that. So it was well answered and very well handled, Sandeep. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Pankaj Dharkar, for your kind words. So, in the end, I would request Mr. Suresh Menon, the FSAI National President, for giving us a vote of thanks for this.
Good evening, friends. First of all, I must thank Sandeep Goel ji for this wonderful session, clearing the doubts of many designers. Thank you, sir, for so beautifully, brilliantly explaining the subject. Thank you, Architect Surendra Bhattaji, for organizing this webinar on this hot topic. That too by none other than Goel sir. He's the right person to cover this topic. I must acknowledge the presence of the presidential member, Mr. Pankaj Dharkar. Thank you, sir, for attending today's webinar. And I would like to reiterate his appeal. Please help us in our COVID activities. Request you to please donate whatever you can and help us in our COVID-related activities, which you are all aware of. I must also acknowledge with thanks the presence of another presidential member, Mr. Liaquat Khan. He is also present as an attendee. I must thank Gil Saab and Rakesh Arora for nurturing Chandigarh chapter and handholding it. I'm extremely happy to see such a huge number of attendees. I'm sure all this is because of our star speaker, Mr. Sandeep Goel. And I would request all my attendees here today to become members of FSAI and support us in our endeavor and our vision of Surakshit Bharat. Our Chandigarh chapter under the leadership of Bagaji has been doing a lot of good activities, and we request the attendees who are present here from Chandigarh to help him develop this chapter even further and make it one of the most vibrant chapters of FSAI. Besides seminars, expos, trainings, all of which we conduct, we also have one pet project, which is to educate the school children to handle emergencies like fire. We have covered 4,80,000 students last year in our pursuit towards our vision Surakshit Bharat. Our dream is to make safety a way of life. We want every Indian to practice safe living. So please join FSA and help us achieve this vision. Before I end, we are very grateful to architect Guneet Khurana of Archistudent and architect Dinesh Bhagat. Both of you played a major role in getting us all these architects and students to attend today's event. My special thanks to our sponsor for the day, Orient Fire Curtains, Mr. Raman Kapoor. You are also attending. Thank you for that. Finally, thank you, Renu, Suresh, Harsha, Chanchal. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you once again. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you, sir.